we're seeing large-scale human trials with ketogenic diets. And what is a ketogenic diet? It just means you get rid of carbohydrates. Okay, what do you replace it with? Well, just like you got rid of meat, what do you replace it with? Carbohydrates. When you get rid of carbohydrates, you replace it with meat, really. You replace it with protein and fat. But the sources for that protein and fat is largely from animal products. You could do this with a vegetarian diet, but it'd be difficult. You basically have to drink canola oil and take a bunch of multivitamins. And so it's not really practical, and no one really wants to do it. So they don't. All of these studies don't use a plant-based ketogenic diet. They use an animal-based ketogenic diet. And that's what's really important to know and understand. Because people will say, well, there's no evidence for a meat-based diet. No, that's the only diet that has evidence, because it's the only diet that's been studied rigorously. The plant-based diets are just survey questionnaires. They ask a bunch of nurses and say, hey, what'd you eat last year? That's actually a study. That's the nurses' study. And they ask them once a year what they ate last year. They don't say, hey, keep track this year. They say, hey, what'd you eat last year? Good luck getting accurate information. The only ones that have been studied rigorously are an animal-based diet. So that actually is the safest diet. It's actually the most beneficial diet. And people are saying that we shouldn't call this a diet. We should call this a therapeutic intervention, because it is, because we're reversing diseases. And that's because we're removing the cause. There's a cause and effect relationship. When you remove something and the effect goes away, that should make you think. When you bring that something back and the effect comes back, then you're really onto something, and that cause and effect relationship. So again, diabetes was shown to be reversible with a low-carb ketogenic diet, animal-based, at Virta Health. Dr. Unwin and others have been reversing numerous cases of diabetes. Dr. Unwin has been keeping count and keeping records and showing that he's a UK doctor, and he's showing the NHS, hey, this is how many tens of thousands of pounds I'm saving you every year just on diabetes medications, all these other medications. That's probably the only reason he hasn't been struck off yet for going against the guidelines. But he has to date 137 cases of completely reversing type 2 diabetes and getting them off medications. Improving CVD, so the lean mass hyperresponder studies with Dave Feldman, they found people on a ketogenic diet with so-called massively elevated LDL for an average of 4.7 years, actually found they had reduction in their atherosclerosis. It didn't go up. It didn't even stay the same. The trend was to improve. Crohn's disease, we're seeing multiple studies with this showing that you remove carbohydrates, you remove different sorts of foods, and just keep meat and those sorts of things. Well, they're just removing things, but what you keep is generally meat after that. You're reversing this, keeping people into remission. SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, there's case series showing that the carnivore diet specifically has reversed that. Alzheimer's disease, there are studies showing that high-fat, meat-based ketogenic diets are a better treatment for Alzheimer's than every drug ever trialed, right? Okay, so how to make a change. I'm probably going to go through this a bit more quickly just because, just for time's sake. But the main problems is that all the money is on the side of the pharmaceutical companies and the drug companies and the food companies. And so research is coming from them, but they also have this product model where they have a marketing budget. And so they're pumping out a lot of money and they're getting people out there talking about it. They can pay media corporations to talk about, the new Ozempic trials or something like that, whatever the new drug is of the day. But they also are pushing their agenda into the medical schools. They're helping to curate the curriculum for medical schools. A lot of the professors are on boards of all these things, and they have an implicit bias in what they teach medical students as well. And that gets into residency programs and into the boards. What we learn about, they dictate this. The food and drug companies dictate this, and then the continuing medical education at the different conferences that are not like this, that are sponsored by, they're all sponsored by Big Pharma and Big Food. And so they get to talk about well, we don't like that speaker. He talks about a ketogenic diet. We don't want that, right? And but that's also why. I mean, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of studies. Why don't doctors know about these? Well, we know about it, but because we did our own research and we looked into this, or we had a patient or ourselves who had massive health improvements because of this. And then we started looking into it and going, my goodness, there's thousands of studies there, but you know what? They don't have a marketing budget behind them to get this into the medical schools, to get this into the residency programs, and to get this into the conferences. We have to do these things independently, right? And they don't have sponsored lunches at hospitals and things like that. We treat these drug reps as if they're like the research wing of our hospital or something like that. It's like, oh, here's a bunch of sandwiches, and oh, look at this study. Oh, that's so great, keeping us up to date. No, this is a marketing campaign, right? This is a salesman. They're giving you a sales pitch. You're going to let like used car dealers come and tell you about how great a 1996 Corolla is. It's look at this study, how great it is. Like, yeah, okay, fine. But know where it's coming from, right? So this is a grassroots movement. There are doctors stepping outside the system. They're seeing this for themselves. They're seeing what actually works. They're getting really despondent with the system, saying like, this isn't helping people. I'm just seeing people getting worse and worse and worse year after year. And then they come across this and they're like, okay, this actually helps people. This is why I came into medicine in the first place. And so that's growing. There's a number of doctors here that I've spoken to that are in that category. And everyone who's spoken up here has been in that category as well. And we're seeing this actually helps people, right? And then patient research, people are starting to recognize that their interests are not being taken care of, right? That the powers that be don't have their best interests at heart. And so they have to do their own research, and they actually educate the doctors. So Dr. Unwin, the reason he came to a low-carb approach is because he had a patient who wasn't taking their diabetes medication. He said, hey, what's going on? And they said, well, I haven't needed it in a year, because I stopped eating carbs and everything went away. And I can't believe you never told me that a bowl of cereal had as much sugar as, it's like 10 teaspoons of sugar, right? And that this actually mattered. Like, I can't believe that you're even qualified to be a doctor. You didn't even know this. And he was just like, ooh. And he was like, okay, shots fired. And he said, okay, when a patient says that to you, you need to pay attention. And so he did, and so he listened, and so he started looking into it and realizing, wow, there's a lot here, and he's completely changed his approach. But his name was Mud for a long time, and people would turn their back on him, and they would shout at him in meetings like this about what a monster he was for doing this sort of stuff. So he had to keep records. He had to keep audits and find, like, hey, I have 137 patients that are now off diabetes medications. What are you doing, right? And so now his name is not Mud. But that came from a patient calling him out. And hopefully you all are trying to educate your doctors as well, because most of them are very well-meaning and want to help. But they're getting all the information from the drug companies and from the food companies, right? And they're being told that for a diabetic, it doesn't matter how much carbs they eat. You don't need to limit carbs. Just make sure they're getting enough insulin. Well, of course, you'll say that. You're selling the damn insulin, right? But insulin doesn't have to do with just blood sugar control. As we saw, high insulin affects over 100 different mechanisms in your body. And so the higher you bring that, the worse off your patient will be. And they've seen that when they aggressively treat blood sugar with insulin, people die. And that's why doctors say, don't want your blood sugar to be too controlled as a diabetic. You want your HbA1c to be around 6 to 7. That's because of these studies that aggressively treated HbA1c with insulin, and people were dying. Oh, it's because the glucose being low, they're getting hypos. No, it was because the high insulin was killing them. That's what it's from. Hey everyone, really happy to announce a new sponsor for the show and for everybody down in Australia, Stockman Steaks, who are delivering high quality grass-fed and finished pasture-raised beef and other meats, flash frozen and vacuum sealed to your door, something that I've been enjoying a lot of myself recently as well. They also have a great range of specialty items such as high-fat keto mince and carnivore beef and organs mince with liver, kidneys, and beef heart as well. So use code Chaffee today for a free order of beef mince or another specialty gift along with your order at stockmansteaks.com.au, and I'll see you over there. Thanks, guys. So we can accelerate these things, this grassroots movement, with things like this, different conferences, the Low Carb Down Under conference, the PCH conference I'll be speaking at next month, this conference, these sorts of things. These are grassroots movement that help galvanize things and help educate the educators and educate the patients who can then go and make a difference in their own communities. And we grow this process, and we will eventually win this if we keep pushing, because the truth will out. This does work, and you can't keep this locked up forever. And then there's private funders. There's people like the Bazookies who are, they invented Roblox, that video game. So they're very wealthy from that. Their son had bipolar. I just interviewed him on my podcast. Matt Bazooki had a horrible case of bipolar, had all the problems that came with that. And his parents were very, very worried for him. And they spoke to Professor Chris Palmer, who is at Harvard, and found this out, that, hey, if you change people's diet, put them on a ketogenic, even a carnivore diet, that their schizophrenia goes away in a few months. Their bipolar goes away. Their major depression goes away. OCD, ADHD, even autism can improve as well, largely to do with the benefits from the mitochondria improving, but also because you're getting rid of a lot of other toxic things that are directly harmful. And so now they're so appreciative of this, they're like, okay, more people need to know about this. So they're funding a lot of these conferences as well to educate the educators. And that will grow as well. So just some quick results from my clinic. We have over 100 patients with Hashimoto's thyroiditis that we have clinically reversed, that every single one that goes on a carnivore diet, their autoimmune antibodies go down to nothing as long as they stay on it. And we measure these. It's very easy to measure that. Their thyroid may not recover all the way because there is such a thing as damage done. It may not recover fully, but the antibodies go to zero, and they generally come off a lot of their medications, if not all. Many other autoimmune conditions, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, Graves' disease, lupus. We have a few patients with rheumatoid arthritis and even multiple sclerosis, and these are all improving dramatically with just these dietary changes, just eating a more typically appropriate diet for human beings. Cancer. I don't treat cancer directly, but I do help people if they want to investigate ketogenic metabolic therapy for cancer. It's something I've been involved with in the research side of things with Professor Thomas Seyfried in America, and given some lectures on. But we have people that are using this as an adjunct to their cancer treatment, and some of them are having absolutely remarkable results. One lady had breast cancer and spinal metastases and mets all over her body, and in less than 6 months, she was completely cancer-free on radiological imaging. So that's a massive, massive improvement. This lady was terminal. She said, you are going to be dead in the next few months, and now she's at least visibly cancer-free on her scans. Hemochromatosis. I mean, it's something they say, don't eat red meat because it has so much iron in it. And then we have people with hemochromatosis who have a buildup in iron and actually are getting better, right? And now I have one patient that hemochromatosis is rare, but so I only have one patient with it at all, but he was able to actually stop needing to give blood to lower his iron levels, because it's not about how much iron is coming in, it's about how you use it and how you metabolize it. That's what's important. And when your body's working properly, that will work properly as well. Testosterone. Every male patient that comes in, their testosterone goes up. I have 70-year-old men who triple their testosterone and get to the level of a 25-year-old. And one guy came in and he was extremely excited, and he was very happy. He was just teeming with energy. And he just said, I just feel like a teenager again. This is great. All I want to do is work out and have sex with my wife. I'm like, great, that's good. You get these massive improvements in people's health. I even have professional athletes who double their testosterone. I mean, what a hack that is. You're already a professional athlete, and now your testosterone doubles. What's that going to do to your competition? And this is why a lot of professional teams here in Australia are switching to carnivore. Entire teams, entire rugby teams and AFL teams are trying to switch to carnivore, and they're not talking about it because they don't want the other teams to do it, because this is such a hack. PCOS, as I said, that just goes away. That's just insulin resistance. And Ehlers-Danlos. I have 3 patients with Ehlers-Danlos. That's a very mobile joints. They get dislocations. I have 3 patients. They just started eating more meat. They didn't even necessarily need to go full carnivore, but now they're getting more building blocks for collagen, I believe, and less inflammation. They're just cleaning things up. They're not having joint replacement or joint dislocations anymore. It's remarkable. So we don't know why, but it's happening. Type 2 diabetes goes hand in hand with PCOS. But every single person I see, we test them for insulin resistance, test them for blood sugar and fasting insulin. They all improve. Every single one across the board. I've yet to see anybody go the other way. And so people say, well, if you don't eat carbohydrates for a certain amount of time, then you start getting, I've never seen that. I have hundreds of patients. We check their fasting insulin and blood sugar all the time. I only see it go one direction, stabilize, and stay there. and obesity. I mean, we probably have some of the best records for treating obesity, and the worldwide numbers. So this is worldwide for everybody trying diets and things like that. Out of 100 people, only 20 will ever reach their target weight. Only 5 people will keep that for a year. Only 1 person will keep that after 5 years. We have very different numbers. Over 80% reach their target weight. Over 26% maintain that after 5 years. And those are with more of a low carb approach. We still don't have our 5-year numbers for carnivore yet, but I can tell you that every single person who stayed on that has maintained the weight loss. No one has come off unless you come off the diet. And that's why you think of it as a way of life. This is not just a diet, right? It's a metabolic therapy. This is not a just diet to get into your old, gym clothes from high school or something. So in summary, the natural state of all life is good health. All plants, all microbes, all animals, they're healthy. Sickness is a problem. Sickness is a disorder. It's pathological, and we just accept it as normal. So you're just getting older. Now, kids get sick. Kids get these diseases they should not have. Elderly people get diseases they should not have, and some things that we did not see in these more primitive groups that were just eating a more natural diet until they were transitioned onto this processed garbage that we're eating too. But even Dr. Salisbury in the 1800s, he found this long before processed foods. He found that people that were eating more plants were getting other diseases. People simply weren't, like autoimmune diseases, and more susceptible to tuberculosis, like we saw in the fossil record pre and post agriculture, right? So he even figured out in the 1800s, you put people back on a red meat and water diet only, and you can reverse these things as well. I wrote a whole book on it called The Relation of Alimentation and Disease, Alimentation, Beat, and Digestion. The relationship between what you eat and the diseases you get, that these diseases are being caused by the food that you eat. And that's exactly what I argue as well.
Hey guys, just want to take a second to thank our sponsor at Carnivore Bar. I don't promote many products because honestly, all you need to be healthy is to just eat meat. For those times that you're out hiking, road tripping, or stuck at work and you want a nutritious snack that is just meat, fat, and salt if you want it, the Carnivore Bar is a great option. So I like this product not because it's just pure meat, but also because I want the carnivore market to thrive as well. And the more we support meat-only products, the more meat-only products there will be available in the mainstream. So if this sounds like something you'd like to get behind, check it out using my discount code Anthony to get 10% off, which also applies to subscriptions, giving you 25% off total. All right, thanks guys.
So we've lost our way in health. These are preventable diseases. These are not out of our control. Every single one of you is completely in control of the majority of things that will happen to your life and your health. 90% of the problems that we have right now are 100% preventable. Even when we were smoking at an 80% rate, we did not have these diseases as well. So something added on to that to make things worse. So that's completely preventable. If these numbers can go up, they can also go down. You just have to recognize what the cause is, and then you can get rid of the effect. So as I said, sort of these are really from poisoning and lack of proper nutrition. I believe that's a major cause of this. And if we return to our natural state, and we talk about light and grounding, all these sorts of things. This is all things we're designed to be out. We're terrestrial beings. We should be out in the sun. This is something that we've grown up with biologically, but so is eating food, so eating the right food. And so this is all important. All these things roll in together. So you get back to a more natural approach to your life as much as you can, living in boxes. You do the best you can, you're going to get better results. And food is so fundamental because that's something you're introducing to your body. What you eat becomes your body, right? And so there's nothing more fundamental than that. And so we're getting people educated in groups like this and online and trying to spread this out. But it really comes from you guys. We can present this stuff, but it's you who have to action it in your life and show the benefits of this. And then you show your family how much better you are. They get interested. They start asking questions. You start pushing them in the direction of different information so they can look into it themselves and see if it's something that they want to employ in their own life. And then they affect others and others and others, and this just grows. And the reason that these channels are growing and these conferences are growing, like Regenerate and like Low Carb Down Under and the PHC, is because of that. of that effect that you guys are having in your own circles. That's how this grows. So don't think that that's just a small effect. Your ripple of influence goes a long way. And then someone else that you influence will then be another ripple and another ripple and another ripple. And now we're having people talk about the carnivore diet, on the evening news. Oh, what's this carnivore diet? We'll get our expert. Oh, it's garbage. Okay, great. You have to talk about it though, don't you? And then someone says like, well, what the hell is that about? Maybe they look into it and go like, doesn't sound so garbage to me. Maybe they try it. I was on 60 Minutes Australia, and they tried to sort of paint me in a bad light. But everybody in the comments were saying, it was like, that meat guy's the only one that looks healthy out of everybody there. And they also recognized I was the only one not pushing a product. I just said, hey, you just eat meat. You don't need all these supplements. You don't need all these things. And so I had a lot of people message me saying, hey, I saw that and they tried to trash you, but it made me interested and I tried it and I've never felt better in my life. So even bad press is good, but there's no such thing as good press or as bad press, right? It's all good. You're just getting it out there. So we're already at that point that they have to talk about it. So this is working. So we just keep pushing your spheres of influence out there. And this will keep getting out to more and more people, and we will win this eventually. Many other autoimmune conditions, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, Graves' disease, lupus. We have a few patients with rheumatoid arthritis and even multiple sclerosis, and these are all improving dramatically with just these dietary changes, just eating a more typically appropriate diet for human beings. Cancer. I don't treat cancer directly, but I do help people if they want to investigate ketogenic metabolic therapy for cancer. It's something I've been involved with in the research side of things with Professor Thomas Seyfried in America and given some lectures on.